You're on.
Minutes. And unless there's some issues, so look for a motion.
Ron wasn't coming, he's here. I saved your chair for you.
You're gonna have a rumble if you were in the chair. A quiet one.
Didn't want to have to rustle down the damn floor in front of everybody.
On TV.
On TV.
Yeah, we're good.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes submitted.
Second? Comments, I have one, paragraph right above where it says code enforcement. There's the second line, it says, situation revealed that the ordinance includes verbiage, and it was something that I was speaking to, and my reference for that was, it was state guidelines, not our ordinance. Or at least that's how I refer to that.
I think the reason I put that is because they were talking about how the ordinance addresses that, and the ordinance is comprised of the state guidelines, so I can change that.
Okay, easy enough. Any other comments or questions?
In the last paragraph on the first page, would the Pepin operation still retain the mining rights in that area that it's being sold to within that within the 1,000 buffer?
No, I think they're selling it because it wasn't the trees.
I remember him saying that he...
They would not, right? Maybe am I reading it wrong?
No, I think they were going to still be able to.
They still will be able to
I think
mine.
so. I think that's how I remember it.
Oh,
I got-
remember it the way Yoli was mentioning.
Good?
But I went back and checked that, because somewhere else it said that, but I found.
It's
is
mentioned
this what
land
they
trust
gave
here.
us?
Yeah, this is it.
There was, at the top of that plan that they gave you, all of that was outlined. Yeah, that one. It was all outlined, so I took it from there.
okay.
Because there was a lot of information that came out of that conversation, and I just was so nervous that I wouldn't have it correct.
Maybe Ken remembers too.
Ken can answer that question.
Short-term memory.
Well, this wasn't too far back. You might be saved. We're wondering about the Pepin project and the land eventually going over to the Three Rivers. Would Pepin reserve the right to still take gravel out of those parcels that were given to or sold to the Three Rivers?
I think that's the intention of the whole thing.
I thought so too.
You know, do a forestry activity, then a gravel, and then a reclamation. And the intention, it's all in resource protection now, so you really can't do anything out of it, but you'd have to look at it as it's state or town. If it's town resource protection, next year it could all be out in those areas. So that's the really only concern is is it truly protected? If Three Rivers takes it over, now it's conserved forever. So,
But they could still mine that area?
if that's what the permit, so I guess Three Rivers could come in and pull the permit. If they had a parcel and they wanted to do, generate revenue from gravel or have something to do.
But on their own, Pepin would not be able to do it once it's been turned over?
Pepin would be able to with a conditional use for under 10,000 a year.
Maybe that's what I remember. I
In
thought I
the- in the
remember
resource
Matt
protection.
saying that.
And in the Ospey district, which is unique, that's unallowed use in the resource protection.
One other thing on page 1 in the second paragraph, it's not really the Acton Three Rivers Land Trust, it's just the Three Rivers Land Trust.
Okay. Strike that.
And there was something that I was hoping that was written in the minutes. I stated during the meeting that I did not have a conflict of interest, i.e. I had no monetary gain in the Pepin project if it went one way or another, nor does Three Rivers actually. I did have a bias, so I was going to step aside from the voting on any of the issues pertaining.
I did note that, Tom,
You did?
but what I thought I would do is through the process, whenever a vote came up, I was gonna put you as an abstention and why. But I can still state it here if you like.
It might be good to just have it stated from the outset. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So that's just something that we have to follow through, I guess, really, as this process goes along and see what the expectations are.
I guess we're not paying nothing until we get the information that they're gonna bring us from
Right.
the state,
They're
right?
gonna come back to us.
Yeah, I don't even think that was pre-application, that
It
was
was
just
just talking, right? Just saying hello.
knock and talk.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, pass 4-0. All right, looks like we're done. I don't think so. Ken, do you have anything?
I know that you have an applicant that would like to talk to you tonight, referencing a best possible location. You guys want to come up?
Sure. Right. That's it.
Nice inside.
Folks, we need several months ago, right?
No, not before the board, no. This is our first time.
Familiar.
Do we?
You're not the first person.
Our imposters were here maybe. So Ken, do you start the conversation?
You can go first and then I'll follow up. I can just tell the board, this just came in, this is a project we've been working on for a while. They just brought this in, so I don't have the normal photos that you'd be looking at and the plans laid out. I think we'll probably, I haven't even had a chance to review with them on site my thoughts, but basically I think I can say for you guys, you don't want to move the camp.
Correct.
And I'm looking at it over 30 feet that the camp can come back. So more than likely, you guys may want to make a site walk and stuff, but you can listen to them tonight and we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not sure what information is pertinent. Besides that we purchased this camp, it was built in 1962. And we began to engage Ken to get our permitting and learn the process, and started to repair. You know, it was in very, very bad shape, this repair, hadn't ever really been maintained. So started the process and worked with Ken and his guidance, and in, I believe it was May, we received notification from Ken that we may have exceeded the removing more than 50% of the market value of the original camp. And that led us to tonight. So we're trying to continue following the process and we're here to answer any questions or to understand what our next steps may be.
Is this sloped? I mean-
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, steep hill
Yeah.
to the water.
So, yeah, I haven't even had a chance to look at this. This was just done this week. We hadn't had a certified plot plan.
Is there an extra copy?
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
Sorry. But yeah, the front of the camp, we're approximately, I think that's, what does that say, 65? To the front corner there. And it's, you know, it's
It's a
steep.
hill.
It's steep,
It's up a hill.
you know, it's
And
like.
behind it too? Very steep,
So-
continuous?
So, I wish I had a 3D, but like, so about the first quarter of the camp is the peak of the hill. Okay, right, that's the
As
peak.
if it's like a berm?
Well, it's like just a little hump. What's that?
Little hummock.
Yeah, just a
Chunks
little
on
hump.
top of it.
Yeah. So, it does run both, back and, you know, the slope. But the slope is, you know, it's much steeper.
Going to the water.
Going to the water, and then it's kind of gradual on the way back.
Most of the Brady's are gonna draw a steep drop to the lake.
Yeah,
but not only
especially in that
yeah,
area of
it's steep,
Brady's.
but we're, you know, 65 back.
We did, there was no septic system, or there was a septic system that had failed on site, so that has been replaced. And there was no well, and there has now been a well, not drilled, sug, drilled.
So on this map, where would the well be, where would the septic be?
Yeah, so as Ken said, it's approximately 30 feet back of the tank, because the plant, so, if you don't mind, I'll just back up just a little bit. So we purchased this camp, and we did we had a site, a building inspection done, and what we decided to do once we got that building inspection was try to keep the existing camp because they said the structure was good. So our intention here is just to bring this cottage back to life, you know, the building inspector said, you know, the pillars that were underneath were solid, the floor was solid. So basically, we got a plan together because of this building inspection. So that was the roof, the windows, and what else? So anyway, we pulled the building permit right at the first of the year. And, you know, discussing all these details with Ken and Brenda, of course. And then we went to work, and then we got cited on one of Ken's visits. That was the stipulation number 11. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. I've learned all about it myself, which is the may not remove more than 50% of the market value. The problem with that is, for us, is that, you know, what's the market value of, you know, a dilapidated roof that, you know, the building inspector says we need to replace. So I probably should have done my due diligence somehow, some way, calculated better. But you know, long story short, we put in a new roof with new trusses. And when we did that, we put new headers on the windows and the doors. And so then the interior walls caved in. So, you know, you peel back the onion and things fall apart.
Right.
But I guess the gist there is that our little non-conforming structure is not any less non-conforming. The footprint hasn't changed. I take that back. The height of the pitch went up it went from a 6 to a 7 pitch on the truss. And yeah, so then you know, we were cited, and then so that's what kind of brought us here to where we're at now. So you know, again, when I went through the process of putting in a new septic, my intention was to put it far enough back that I would eventually someday, if we choose to, you know, retire here or do, you know, we're from Somersworth, but, you know, this is our, you know, we're just trying to get a little place going and then maybe put the foundation in the 30% down the road once the, you know, kids are through college. So point is, I've left enough room behind there, and like Ken stated, the tank is approximately 38 feet back from the back corner of the house. So that leaves me a little bit of a buffer to move it back or put a foundation at some point, and that is the plan. You know, but just, you know, because we've, you know, may have exceeded the 50%, the number 11 on the building inspection. That's what's brought us here today. And the other thing to note is, you know, I'm not sure. So as far as the land goes, the slope on the front is very dramatic. At the top, at the peak where the camp is, it starts to slope back a little bit. I'd say that the grade is probably like 3 or 4 feet to the garage. But then directly behind the garage is a steep
Yeah,
slope
that's steep again.
that goes up to the top of that little bend. So point is that, you know, that we felt, Ken Gardner, the site evaluator, felt that, you know, that was the logical place for the septic system. And I know Ken mentioned, you know, sometimes in these situations, and, you know, I should state that we've never done this before, you know, we don't know.
If you
what
can't
tell. We tried to do as much due diligence as possible by learning the shoreline zoning, by talking with Ken and Brenda, by engaging with, you know, Sam
Yep.
Wilson prior to any of this work, just to get a good feel for what's going on here. But the thing to note is that Central Maine Power goes, you know, the big line goes right through, and that is on here. So we put the leach field and tank, we pushed back as far to the wires we could go without crashing into the garage or without putting it behind the garage.
Is that what these hatched red lines would be on this one?
No, that's my septic setback.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Ken.
We do have a copy of the site evaluation that shows, you know, where the tank is in relation to the back of the house, if you want to see it, like, you know, sketched on there.
The utility lines laid out on it.
Yeah, the utility
dash lines.
It's the old utility pole.
Oh, yeah.
No, it goes
So
this way.
here,
No,
this line,
Yeah,
big
that's
one right there.
it, that's
Got
it,
it.
yeah.
So all those lines are up, nice, beautiful, plan.
So I did end up raising, which was, yeah, if you want those things, yeah.
Ken, excuse me, the tank and the field
Yes.
are further back than 100 feet.
Correct, so the 100-foot mark is actually on here, are they?
That purple line?
Yeah,
And the
that's
back of
the
the can.
100.
Yeah.
Which I learned, because when I met with Ken on site, you know, I mentioned that I thought it was a little bit, I thought the 100-foot went back through like a quarter of my camp. So then it gets real tricky as far as like, you know, figuring like a 30% if like, you know, a portion of your 100, you know, the 100-foot is through, that's like, but we're not talking about that tonight, so.
What size is the camp?
700 square feet,
Small.
it's small, 32 by 22, yeah.
So, Phil,
Yes.
your request, are we considering this as a conditional use permit tonight? or not?
Yeah, so there's 3 reasons the state requires best practical location. One is they rip down and build brand new, which is usually what we're doing, or number 2 is the foundation underneath it. This is the 50% rule, and we did a little bit of that with a couple of them or so. So, I thought they were well aware of the 50% rule. They've emailed me back the 50% rule. It was a condition on their permit. So going out to do an inspection, the only thing that's left there is, original is 1 floor and 2 walls maybe. So the 50%'s been exceeded. And as they were saying, the first thing they did is put a septic system in. And if you're knowledgeable on how to avoid relocating your camp, first thing you do is you put a septic system in, you put it in your way. They weren't knowledgeable enough to avoid it, but they did have it back there, so I don't think they knew it to circumvent the law, they were just trying to do the right thing. That leaves them about 34 feet from behind the camp to the septic system for relocation. which is basically the whole camp could move back, or a portion thereof. It's all flat back there, it's simple, it's easy, it's one of the easiest relocations I've seen. The applicants just don't want to relocate. I think that's accurate, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, why would we relocate? I mean,
A, it's a state law. B, you're trying to get development further away from the lake, and when you come out the front of your camp, you'd actually have a flat area. You wouldn't be going straight down to the lake. And every single person, basically, when we do a relocation, they don't want to relocate, whether they're
Well,
5
of
feet
course.
from the lake or 50, but
of course.
9 out of 10, once it is relocated, they love the idea. Because when they're 5 feet from the lake and they have to move back 25, they have now a 20-foot area or a 25-foot flat area they never had. Your case, you're 65 feet from the lake, so
Correct.
it is greater. Like I said, the board may want to go do a site walk for this and look. I just got the stuff in today, so ideally would be if the board feels they need to, but it is all flat back there, and there's no reason why the camp could not be relocated.
Here's the question. We still got a 10-foot off from the house.
Normally, we would slide it from
So you
the
could go back
side.
24 feet. Mine's 34 feet.
Correct. What was your question?
So we gotta stay within 10 foot of the septic tank?
The buffer would be from that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could try to relocate the tank. You could consider the tank being in place, or you could consider the tank could be relocated.
No,
Right now.
I'd submit, Brenda, I don't know if you, sorry to interrupt, but did you print those pictures that I'd sent?
Yeah, that's really not what they need to look at.
Oh, okay.
They need to be able to visualize the site
Okay.
from behind and see why it can't move back. And ideally, the surveyor would have plotted the septic on here too. I scaled it so I could be off a little bit, a couple of feet, but
I would suggest if we're going to treat these folks fairly, we ought to have a site visit, so we know what we're judging this on.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else have an issue with that? You want to set up a time or a date?
Sure.
What's good for anybody?
Thursday seems to be the better day.
Mm-hmm.
We do it before our next meeting?
On the 16th,
Yeah.
Which would be next Thursday.
6 o'clock.
What are the days that are good for you, Yoli? Isn't it Mondays or Tuesdays?
Yeah, but, I just might be a little bit late.
Or we could do it earlier if it
We
was.
did it like 6:30. Does that give us enough time?
It's a little ways away, isn't it? Yeah, there wouldn't be enough time to get here at 7, but
How about if we do it on the 9th then?
I don't know if I'm available.
Okay,
I have to post that you have an extra meeting.
all right.
Virginia, that's a little ways past your house, your old house, right? On the lakeside. Yeah.
What, Fulton?
Yeah,
It's off of,
It's off the H road?
It's off of H Road, yeah.
yeah,
yeah, right.
but you make the left, it's not Fulton that you take a left on though, is it?
Yeah,
It is, that's right off of H Road?
right off
Yeah.
of H Road.
Off of Bass Road, you did an addition out there about 15, 20 years ago. I can't think of
That was Jimmy. Jared used to live out there.
Yeah.
Jared Valiquet used to live there. But it's a little ways past where Virginia DeBoer used to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a sign that says DeBoer on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side, and then it's on the left.
Well, how about if we go for the 16th and try a little earlier and then, you know, if Yuli gets there when she gets there and,
I'll get us some good photos or a video.
there you go. What else
Are
can she
we
need?
supposed to be there as well?
Yeah.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And ideally, I think I'd spray paint the septic on the ground or something like that. That's, the only restriction there is the septic and the power line, so we get that
No,
out.
we're gonna have to go earlier than 6:30.
Can I ask
Be
you a
here
question?
from 7 o'clock.
If you're gonna have to move it back,
Okay, 6 on 16.
if you're looking at, if we say you gotta go
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
so you gotta go back, say 25 feet, or 20 feet, wouldn't it be more prudent to take and go 2 stories instead of 1?
Oh, yes,
I
yeah.
mean, we'll go to gambrel roof.
Right.
Well, once
Yeah.
he's back beyond the
Work's already
100
done.
feet there, if he gets outside the 100-foot line, he can do whatever he wants.
Well, the work is already done.
The
I
roof
thought
is-
it was, I thought it was just the walls.
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
so,
I
no, so,
misunderstood.
I mean, you know, that's up for debate, how much has been removed and what hasn't been removed.
Right.
And
Right,
I'm
well, we-
not denying what Ken's saying, I'm just saying that, yeah, sidewalk would probably be good because you can see what we've done to the structure and, you know, make your judgment, but, you know, like I said, our intent is not to, you know, put the foundation, do the 30%. Our intent is to make this little non-conforming spot less non-conforming, and I think we're trying to work towards that by doing the septic, engaging the, you know, Acton Watershed Alliance, where they have a project that's in the works to mitigate, you know, the storm, you know, runoff, but the runoff really hasn't changed. But our intent is to keep this sound structure, that, you know, we had the building inspector that said it was sound, it would be safe for our family, like it is, this same footprint. And then go through this process when we're ready to do the, you know, the proper process, you know, put the foundation, but, yeah,
Get a few snags.
get a few snags.
So are we okay with everybody else at 6 o'clock other than Yoli for the 16th? Just to make it
That's our
clear?
next meeting.
The night of this next meeting, correct?
Meet here at 6.
We have enough time to get there and get back?
It's going to take.
About how far in the Fulton is it?
Oh, it's the first left, it's
Yeah,
easy
first
in,
left.
easy
Oh,
in,
okay.
easy in, yeah.
Okay.
It's,
First camp on
All
the...
right.
First driveway on the left,
All
yeah.
right, we'll start here at 6 and then go.
There's a 65 on the tree, a number 65 on the tree. Are there any other pieces of documentation or anything else that you would like, Ken, before the 16th?
I don't think so. I think we've got the plans, so the photos usually just eliminate a site walk, but in this case, I think the board's gonna need to do one anyways.
So the 50% is based on the market value, right? Not necessarily 50% of the actual structure?
It's the removal of the 50%. So if the building was worth $100,000, you could invest $500,000 into it, and it's not an issue. It's the removal of the value. So if you had a window that an appraiser appraised at $10 and you removed it, that gets tallied up. But you could put a $3,000 Marvin window in, and that doesn't matter. So it's the removal of the value, and the state just looks at it at there needs to be a trigger for these non-conforming structures to be more conforming, and they look at it as when you build brand new, when you do the foundation underneath, or once you remove 50% of that value.
So if it was 100,000 and during their reconstruction, if they had to remove more than $50,000 worth of value from it in order to rebuild, that's what would trigger.
Yep.
Okay.
And what's tough in these little camps, their value isn't a camp on the side of the lake, it's just the camp, it's just the structure itself. So the values are usually 30, 40,000, they're not very much, they're just seasonal camps, so.
Yeah, and one of the areas in that chapter 1000 of the shoreline zoning is the, it's that less normal maintenance and repair. So that's the gray area, right? So if you know, and I know Ken, talked to Mike Morse from the state of Maine about this and whatnot, but I'm still unclear on this whole thing because if I have a building inspection that says, this roof is not structurally sound, or the electrical is, there was actually fire, there was a fire in the wall at one point. The plumbing is not working, and we made bigger, egress points by putting bigger windows in, so we made it more safe. That's what I mean, I'm probably not using the right terminology about less non-conforming. It's a lot safer than it was, and it's structurally sound now. So what is normal maintenance and repair on a 1960 cottage that's never had anything done to it, if you look at some of the, and I did a lot of research, tried to, read, different towns, Oxford and Otisfield, and these types of places that have these types of meetings with the best practical locations, and they publish their meetings out there. you know, some towns are saying that, you know, a roof is included in that. Shingles, you know, in a 50-year span, you're gonna have to replace shingles, right, at some point, right? But according to the may not remove more than 50% of the market value, that's included. So it's like, but it hasn't been done, you know, so.
Yeah, it's hard because you removed it at the same time as you removed other parts.
That's
If
it.
you'd done
Yeah.
the roof the year before and then you,
Well,
I
and
mean, you obviously wouldn't have to do the trusses after you did the roof. But
Yeah, and I.
you know, if you did it incrementally, it
Yes.
wouldn't have happened that way.
Yeah, I know, but is that, I mean, I don't know.
I would call
say
maintenance
anything.
something that didn't need a permit.
But if you go by the, and I know the town oversees the shoreline zoning ordinance, you can, you know, you can put your own thing on top of the shoreline zoning ordinance, right? You can have your own.
Be more stringent. than this.
Yeah, so is that what you're saying? Is that you're more stringent on that point?
No, this is just
No.
right from the state.
Yeah.
It's just so someone couldn't just rebuild the whole camp right in
Yeah.
the same footprint and then
And
have a
so-
brand new one in the same spot because
So,
they're supposed to.
right, and
Yeah.
that would be, and that would be less non-conforming.
Now, under your camp existing, could somebody put
Those two
steel I-beams under there and lift the whole thing up and move
We
it?
don't know about that, we haven't
You're not
researched it, we haven't
sure.
thought about it.
It doesn't have a foundation, though.
It has
It's got
pillars.
piers.
It has pillars, so there's room under there and your sill is.
Well, anything can be moved, but.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean,
you know, but-
obviously we'll see on the sidewalk, I'm just.
Yeah,
And, you know, instead of having to rip the thing down, if we said move it, you might be able to just move the whole structure if it doesn't have a foundation under it right now.
Rip the whole thing down?
No.
Well, I mean, if you have to relocate your building, you have two options. One, pick it up and move it, or two, get rid of it and build another one. Those are the two options for moving it. So I was wondering how feasible you thought putting I-beams under the thing and moving it physically would be, because you had no foundation.
I wish I could answer that, I have no idea.
It's one of the easiest ones I've ever seen to read.
That seems like it could be something I'm gonna think about.
Because it's level, relatively
It's level,
speaking.
it's easy, it's simple, and it's the same thing that DEP had said too.
And you can get at it.
Yeah.
And they got this huge parking area, looks like it'd be easy, is it easy to put equipment there to? Well, we'll take a look at it.
You know, it's not as expensive as you may think to move it back, because I did it, we moved a house. It only cost $7,000 to move it. It was a 10-room house. This is a little camp, probably a bit less than that. And we had to pay for power lines and stuff like that to be moved. So,
But that was back in the day.
well, that was only 10 years ago.
That was horses and logs, wasn't it?
Well, we had the kerosene lamps on the front of the truck.
Yeah.
All right, so then we'll set it up so that we'll be with you guys then in 2 weeks at 6 o'clock. And schedule, Ken,
That was in 2006.
are you comfortable with then coming back to the meeting at 7 o'clock or so? And
Yeah, let's say,
then
try to
follow
take
through?
care of it.
Okay. So then you guys maybe should plan to follow us back here, if that's, you know, okay with you guys, to be able to do it.
Definitely want to.
And we'll see how that all plays out.
Care of it.
Thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you for coming.
Thanks a lot.
And all the pleasant ones.
Yeah, okay.
Got someone who will listen now to it. We'll go.
Ready?
There we are. Thank you.
Good night.
I was going to ask Ken, what reaction the selectmen had Tuesday to kind of the things that you brought up to them pertaining to violations.
They were aware, so just so the board knew, I had updated the selectmen. We had 2 court cases recently, which were junkyards and dilapidated structures, unsafe structures. Both of those we won in court. Both of the structures are going to be removed and the junkyards cleaned up. One's on Fox's Ridge, one's on Grady's Lake. So those were both good. I had updated them that we currently have 47 complaints we were working on. We are up to 48 today, another one came in. And our top 3 that they may be involved in was this one right here. One was a brand new house in the resource protection. with beautiful ponds dug into the rivers and stuff. They have surveyors and wetlands delineators working, trying to find where that resource protection line is, so we know how bad the violation is. This was a subdivision the board did about 12, 14 years ago. So that one there, the people are very cooperative and working with us. I don't think that's gonna be a court issue. And then the other one was a project on Square Pond where the applicant had a permit to remove 3 trees, and he basically stripped the whole lot. That one's gonna involve the selectmen, I believe, on that. So they were excited to be updated on it, and yeah, we'll move forward. We'll try to work. Anytime we go to town, the town of Acton has an extremely good working relationship with the courts. They know we've broken our back before we go there. Similar to the place up on Fox's Ridge and the other one, that was many, many years of please do, can you please, and you know, and
It's not my former neighbor, is it?
a little bit past, you know, so, selectmen are supportive because it costs a lot of money to go to court. And, in this last one here, we were trying to get the fees in this fiscal year, so we put the money back in and not next year and have to do it. So, selectmen are supporting too. If we gotta go, we gotta go. We gotta spend the money, we spend the money, and then just recoup the fees back from the, violators.
When there's a violation that's been cited, what happens until this process follows through?
Depending on the violation, whether it's a septic bubbling out of the ground, running into the lake, if the violator wasn't working with us, we'd go get a court order, an injunction, temporary restraining order, something like that. Or if we knew they were cutting the trees right there and they weren't stopping, we'd go get a restraining order for that too. Most times, 90-95%, all you have to do is say something to somebody and they come into compliance. Yeah, 3 or 4, you send a letter and they come into compliance. You get that 1 or 2% that ignores the town letters and may even ignore the judge's orders, so we'll see how those play out.
I didn't realize that there was a squatter living in that place for a while, using a 5-gallon can for heat, burning charcoal in a 5-gallon can on the wood floor.
Well, the house is coming down next week, so.
Oh, good, I'm glad to hear that.
Move out.
Because we were worried, wood's catching fire, how close
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Maybe one more question.
Ken, the one that you were informing them about on Tuesday night that involving the ponds, and you indicated that was off of H Road or something?
That's Milton Mills
Milton
Road.
Mills Road. That's the one to the east of that's the one, the subdivision that we looked at ages ago.
Yeah, and then they never did anything, we
Right.
thought.
Was it approved for, or had the application lapsed, or I mean, what happened?
No, they came in, we gave them approvals, and that's the last we heard of them. The gate's always been up, the no trespassing's been up, the gate's always been locked. Now we have a key to the gate.
But did they build the house without a permit?
Yeah, yeah. And the house, I think, is out of the resource protection. And we discovered it via Google Earth, and we were lucky enough to catch it before the insulation and drywall's in. So that's gonna be huge. Now we're just to a foundation issue.
They're not occupied.
They're not occupying it, so we've got it, and it's a beautiful house. She did a very good job. The girl built most of it herself. The biggest issue is the ponds. They got into the rivers and dug these beautiful ponds. It's just as peaceful out there, but if it's in the resource protection, there's gonna be some reclamation work out there.
Have we got DEP involved?
Monday, we've got a new guy from the DEP, so he's gonna be,
Can you show us on a map, even to indicate, just out of curiosity, I'm curious what the hell they did.
Trying to think where they are. Oh, goodness. Trying to place it on Milton Mills Road.
The school.
East
Near the
of
school.
Yeah, the school.
East of
Oh,
the
that
school.
gravel road that goes in right by the school?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
By Maplestone?
no.
No, it's in,
Public school.
by the Acton Elementary.
Oh.
Remember ages
Right next to Dick
Okay.
John Moore was with us and Percy Lowell was with us, I think. There were 2 older fellows, I remember, and Steve Bodkin was showing us around in there.
Right next to Dick, where Dick Neal lives.
Yeah, okay.
with our laptop, but we hope to have that up and running. So everything will be right up on the screen.
Where's the
I
house?
don't remember the houses.
Oh, is
Street.
it here maybe?
Oh, yeah.
So it would be considered by the state contiguous with the swamp that Heath Brook flows out of, is that?
Yeah. If that river crosses right there at the school.
Okay.
So it's all state, none of the Acton statutes would come in because it's over 10 acres.
Yeah, I believe so. There could be some other areas of it.
Yeah.
That was all the way back behind that?
Yeah.
Behind St. Nancy's?
Oh,
Got some beauties there, huh?
I do have to say,
Oh, there's a pond.
it's a beautiful pond. It's all sandy bottom.
it is all sandy bottom.
What about the contractor?
That's a topic that we're in negotiations. They wanted to take the heat all themselves, and we want to be working with the contractor as well.
Oh, yeah.
No, she did, the framing she did.
Why would the contractor build without a building permit? What is a moron?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. You can't get any argument out of me on that. It is a gentleman, I do believe, the foundation guy we've worked with before, and he does have excavation equipment. It would not surprise me if he dug a couple of ponds while he was in the neighborhood.
I want to put a pond behind my place, it's gonna cost me more than I paid for the house.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead and do it.
By the time I got through talking to the state, I said, never mind this idea, I don't really need the pond.
That was the square
Oh, this
pond.
is the one on Square Pond.
Oh, I thought this was the pond.
That is the pond. Yeah, this is with the original, they ripped all that out.
Oh, man. It's marvelous, the self-confidence that some folks have.
There's a couple of Adirondacks up there to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
observe.
Gee.
Call that scorched earth.
And with that, not to change the subject, with that previous one we were just looking at, say we had them lift it up and physically move it back,
I know.
would they be able to do, they could go ahead
Should have
and put a
known.
little addition on it after they moved it back behind the 100 square feet in the future, because it's back out of the 100, right?
Well, they'd be out of the 30%, whether there's any room there. It was just right from the beginning, when they came in, it was just a little camp, they didn't wanna do a lot of work to it, so they didn't wanna relocate it. And when you have a contractor in there, and he tells you this all needs to be done while he's working, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Rip this wall down, throw these windows in, and, you know, it's a snowball, renovations.
Well, I mean,
snowballs,
they
you know.
could, what I'm asking is, they, you know, it wouldn't stop them from expanding that building in the future, because they'd be back behind the 100.
But the septic's back there.
Well, what if they jumped over the septic?
And when I was looking at that, there's where the house is, 30-something feet, the septic, the power line, the garage, and then there's a lot of room back there. And I said, usually the board's not gonna put you behind the garage, behind the power lines, and put you way up there. Septic should.
Yeah, and what's the garage, is the garage over?
Yeah, I mean, once you guys get out and take a look at it.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
And, I mean, there's something that can be relocated, whether it's 2 feet or 30 feet, there's something there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Sometimes too, you take these
an awful lot
contracts,
has to go through.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing.
So,
They work in the future, otherwise they're screwed.
Yeah, not to be unfair to them, we might as well, hold most of the discussion, I think, though, on that until they get back here to listen. Anything else, Ken?
No, there's 44 other ones we could go.
No, I was
Is
just
this,
wondering about the ones that you had
is
mentioned.
this one the 3 trees that turned into
Yeah.
more than?
Yeah, and he's been getting a lot of compliments how nice it looks.
Yeah.
I'll bet he hasn't been getting all compliments, however.
Yeah, according to him, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's-
That's, okay.
I haven't,
Where are they?
I've got
standing, not in the boat.
That's your source.
I don't think they're in the boat when they say that.
you don't get all comments. I had a tree on the boundary of my land that was blocking view of the lake from up land. And that tree must have been like this, huge. I had to hire a guy with a big enough saw. to cut it down. We cut it down. The owner and the next people out of the lake says, go ahead, it's okay with me, take it down, so we took it down.
Ken,
3 of my neighbors wanted to take it hanging. That tree's been there for 300 years.
these are the two ponds, Ken?
Yeah.
And this, what's that second structure there?
Let's see, there's a garage, a house, a greenhouse,
Okay.
a sawmill.
Sawmill.
Well, that's what the cleared area is from all the wood. Like I said, they've been extremely cooperative. It's gonna really make a big difference on the outcome of this.
So if they're so cooperative, why are they so sneaky?
It's a younger girl doing it, and I think she may have listened to the contractor too much. So, I mean, I've had people call before when we didn't have enough growth permits, and the contractors just went and did whatever. And then because in this case here, you can't sell it, you can't get a mortgage on it, you can't get an equity loan on it, so eventually it was gonna catch them, and they're grateful that it happened now versus next year.
One of these contractors, I've dealt with contractors, plus my wife's whole family's in contracting. That's the whole thing they love, is when you say, oh, come and fix this. And so, why don't you put this window in, put that door? And next thing you know, the project is 3 times what you planned.
I did ask him about the silt fence. I'm like, I gotta ask, why'd you put the silt fence up? You broke every rule in the book. It's not upright, but hey, that little bit helps.
Ken, do you know what's going on at Iron Tales? Are they taking the gas?
Gas tanks are out and down Iron Tales, so that took 8 years maybe or so, so.
The end of an era.
It's the end of an era, brand new, double wall tanks, triple wall telemetry,
You took them out,
yeah.
with fiberglass.
Oh, yeah, brand new. Once you don't sell fuel for 1 year, then you've got
Can't you
to,
fill them with sand?
no, DEP wants them out. The DEP's not gonna say it's a brand new tank or the tank's 30 years old, they don't wanna care. It's, once you're not selling fuel, tanks are.
Eventually, it's gonna be 30 years old.
Exactly.
Well, the fiberglass ones, I think there's exception, is beyond 30 years, because they really don't rot.
All right, before we leave, I just want to make a comment about the annual meeting, the town meeting. I will not be there. So if anybody wants to speak on 4226, as they come up, the two of them, feel free. But I cannot be there at that meeting where I had intended to be able to speak. So I'm just throwing that out to give you a heads up. Okay, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
You got it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All done, Virginia?
Thank you.
Thanks.